So, apparently the Cleveland Browns have the easiest schedule for the 2026 season. Well, Super Bowl, here we come. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. So, I am in a good mood today. The Cleveland Cavaliers won Game 4 last night in magnificent fashion. Donovan Mitchell going crazy mode. James Harden and Evan Mobley also playing excellent. Just a great win to level the series. I'm in a good mood. It's NFL schedule release week, which, don't get me wrong, I do kind of have to lie a little bit and pretend that I care about this more than I do. Because as a British guy, the whole concept of releasing a schedule the way that the NFL does it takes a little bit of getting used to, shall we say. Over here in the UK, we get the Premier League fixtures come out in like July, and we're like, okay, cool. You have a little look at the Christmas fixtures, Boxing Day, little look at the end of the season to see you running. Nowhere else in any British sport, any European sport, do we take the schedule as important and as big of a thing as the NFL does. But as I've always said, one of my favourite things about the NFL is how they are able to keep themselves in the calendar, in the news kind of circuits, shall we say, all year round, with how they kind of release their events and how they kind of schedule their events throughout the off season, obviously when we don't have any football being played. So Thursday night, I believe, is the official schedule release. That will be like 1 a.m. here in the UK. Guys, I stay up for these games. I'm sorry, but I will not be staying up for the NFL schedule release. I'll have a look at all the videos that the teams do, especially the Chargers, in the morning. I'll probably get the video out actually reacting to the hard and, confirmed schedule for the Cleveland Browns, whether on Friday, depending on what time that Cavs game is, and when I finish work. If not, it'll be Saturday morning. But today, I just wanted to kind of, before we get into the schedule itself, as I said, Thursday is when we get the full schedule. We're going to find out pretty much most of these games before then anyway, because all of this stuff gets leaked before the official announcement anyway. I think that's why the NFL tries to get ahead of the game with releasing some of these games throughout the week before the actual official release, because they know that they're going to get leaked anyway. I mean, we pretty much already know that the Browns are going to be at the Baltimore Ravens week 1. That seems to be the biggest rumour doing the rounds at the minute for the Browns. So that's pretty much the only thing we can go off right now. But today I wanted to talk about another schedule-related topic, and that is the idea of strength of schedule, and obviously the Cleveland Browns officially having the easiest strength of schedule for the 2026 season. Now, this is the one that the NFL does, so this is just solely based on last year's record. They look at all of your opponents, work out the win percentage for those teams the previous year, and then put that into the thing, and you'll have a list of easiest schedule at the Browns going all the way to the hardest, which I think this year was the Bears. Other places do it slightly different. Like Walter Sports and all of that stuff. Some places do it with like a combined win projections for these teams. So like they'll basically look at your opponents, look at what the betting markets have those win projections and win totals at, and kind of base it around that, which I think is probably a slightly better way of doing it. But I don't actually think there's a great way of doing this at all, because in the end of the day, do you have an easy schedule? Can you sit here, look at the Browns' schedule, look at the opponents, and say that's the easiest schedule in the NFL? I can see the reasons why you can, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't take any stock into this stuff. I mean, just little tidbits that I found. The team with the easiest schedule in the AFC over the last 8 seasons has finished with a winning record. And to go even further, the team with the easiest schedule, the last three teams with the easiest schedule in the AFC, all hired a new head coach that year, and all made the playoffs. That was the Texans with D'Amico Ryans, the Chargers with John Harbaugh, and then last year, I am just completely blanking right now, whatever team that was. So, on one hand, you can say, yes, there's obviously precedent for this stuff. There's clearly correlation between having what is dubbed as the easiest schedule and that resulting in more wins, shall we say. Patriots, there we go. Patriots, Mike Vrabel. Last season, that was the team that had the easiest schedule in the AFC. And don't get me wrong, that was one of the cases where, I can sit here and say that you don't put too much stock into this, but that was one of the cases where it was like, no, we have to put stock into this, because this isn't just a easy schedule. This is historically easy, and it's laughable who they're playing against, the quarterbacks they're playing against, and obviously the defenses that they're playing against. So I say all of that to say that, yes, there is definitely precedent here. There's definitely a correlation. I don't think this is a completely random thing at all, between the idea of having the easiest schedule and that resulting in wins. But then also on the flip side of it, I just don't think you can put that much stock into it because of all of the variables that can change. I mean, let's just take the official NFL one, which is just based on last year's records for your opponents. That's all well and good, but this is this year. This isn't last year. And as we all know, the NFL has just as much, if not more, parity than any other sports league in the world, let alone America. And I don't say that lightly. So, the idea that, well, just because a team finished with a 3-14 record, nearly at the 18 games, guys, we're nearly there. A couple years, a team will finish 3-15. Just because a team finished 3-14 last year doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to suck the next year. I think every year we essentially get a worse to first team. Every year we get 2 or 3 new playoff teams that missed the playoffs the year before. So when you are just doing it off, last year's record alone, I just don't think you can put that much stock into that. And that is, of course, the model where the Browns do come out as the team with the easiest schedule, if we are just basing this from last year's records for the teams that they are playing. Yes, you can maybe put a little bit more stake into these other kind of ones where it's like we're looking at win totals. Where, don't get me wrong, Vegas usually somewhat not spot on, but they do okay with their win totals. Certainly better than others, shall we say? So I do think that you can, put a little bit more stock into that. But as I said, at the end of the day, I do think this whole kind of, easiest schedule stuff is overblown. I don't think it's non-existent by any means. As I said, there's clearly correlation here. The eight teams with the easiest schedule in the AFC over the last 8 seasons have all finished with winning records. Smaller sample, look at the last 3. All of them made the playoffs. So, yes, we can sit here and say this is something that we can, provide a glimpse of hope and excitement, shall we say. I'm not saying that you should ignore it. This is definitely something that you should look at and go, well, okay, there's a chance here for the Browns to do something. But I don't think it by any means it guarantees it. If any team is going to be a team to, stop this this record of 8 straight teams with the easiest record in the AFC with a winning record, it will probably be the Cleveland Browns. But for me, it's more so actually about the opponents and when you play them, more so than it actually is the strength of schedule. And this is kind of what it falls down to me with the whole the schedule release anyway. I'm not even really caring when this comes out, like the actual structure of the games per se. For me, I'm looking at, and I'll obviously talk more about this when the schedule does come out and talk about, what the examples that, the Browns will hopefully get. And that's more so, when the bye week is, how many road trips you have, whether you're doing a LA trip, which is then followed by a home game, or if you're doing a, cross country one week, other side of the country the next week. That's the kind of stuff that I look at when the schedules come out and when I decide, how and I try and picture kind of how, potentially the season can go, and we do win-loss and all of that stuff, which I will, of course, do in that video when the official schedule is out. But, we know the opponents. We know most of the Browns' opponents next year, let alone this year, just with how the way that the NFL is shaped up. And that's another thing why I've just never put too much stock into the schedule stuff, because it's like we're really making this much of a big deal about the fucking order of these games. We already know the games. We already know the opponents. We're just talking about what order that they are in. For anyone that needs refreshing, the Browns' 2026 opponents are, so their home opponents, of course, Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, Pittsburgh Steelers being the division teams. Then we have the Atlanta Falcons and Kevin Stefanski coming to Cleveland. Carolina Panthers coming to Cleveland again. The Houston Texans will be coming to Cleveland. The Colts will be coming to Cleveland. And the Las Vegas Raiders and Fernando Mendoza will be coming to Cleveland. And then the away opponents, of course, Ravens, Bengals, Steelers. And then we will be going to Jacksonville. I believe we will be going to Jacksonville, not to London, but just some of the leaks we've seen. I'm pretty confident that I can sit here and say that the Browns will not be playing Jacksonville in London, because I think they'll be playing the New Orleans Saints in Paris, which is obviously one of their other away opponents, which, if is the case, great, because last year we got dealt the shit hand of one of our home games being in London, which meant that, and bearing in mind it was a season where we only had 8 home games, so obviously with the 17-game season, depending on the year, you'll either have 8 home games, 9 away games, or 9 home games, 8 away games. And in a year where we only had 8 home games, we actually lost another one, because playing in London is not a home game, as much as I'd love to say that it potentially is. It obviously isn't. So I'm glad that if the rumours are true and the Browns are playing the New Orleans Saints in Paris, which if they are, I will certainly be hopping on the Eurostar and going to watch. Then it will be the Saints that lose their home game, not the other way round. We will also be going to Tampa Bay to play the Buccaneers. We will be going to New York to play the Giants, not the New York Saints, the New York Giants. We will be going to New York twice to play the Jets. So they can schedule that in back-to-back. The Browns can stay in New York for a week. That would be all right. And then the Tennessee Titans as well. So let me just double-check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm not really sure how this works, because this is 2 consecutive years where we've only had 8 home games and 9 away games. Logic would make you think that these alternate between years, but no, apparently the Browns only have 8 home games this year, and 9 away games. So that's the opponents, and that's kind of why what I look at with the, I don't need the NFL telling me these teams' records from last year. I don't need betting sites telling me what these win projections are. We can all look at these teams. We can all look at what they've done in the offseason. We can all look at what they've done in the draft. We then look at who we're playing, look at that team, and make a judgment of whether or not that is a winnable game for the Cleveland Browns. And you look at these teams. The Falcons, obviously, with a new head coach, that could go either way, kind of thing. But that's not exactly a hard game, shall we say? The Carolina Panthers, who were frisky last year, but still went 7-9 or 7-9, 8-9. I keep getting these total games mixed up, guys. Houston Texans are obviously the Texans. That's a tough matchup, but they've lost their entire offensive line this offseason after trading away Larry Tunsil, so we'll see obviously how they go. The Colts obviously started last season hot. We all know how it finished. Is Daniel Jones going to be healthy when we even play them? So I wouldn't exactly dub that as a hard game. The Raiders had the number 1 pick last year. We all know how that should hopefully fare. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I mean, frisky, but not elite by any means. The Saints literally finished with a top 10 pick last year, despite Tyler Shook playing quite well. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, look, we're playing Baker Mayfield. Who knows what could happen with that game? The Giants had a top 5 pick. The Jets had a top 5 pick. The Titans had a top 5 pick. So you look at these opponents, and this is why I've been saying for months that the Browns, if they can get their shit together, there's a chance to win some games next year. Obviously, whether that happens is another question, but there is a chance for the Browns to go and win some games next year. Don't get me wrong, the Ravens are also in the top 10 of easiest schedules because obviously they missed the playoffs last season. They get that third schedule. I can't even remember who finished. No, I think it was the Bengals that finished. Who knows? It doesn't matter. Who cares? The Bengals are also seem to have a pretty easy schedule based on just last season's records. Pretty much all of the AFC North teams are in the bottom half of this kind of strength of schedule kind of stuff. With the Steelers having the toughest schedule out of the 4 teams, but them still only being around middle of the pack for the NFL. The teams with the hardest schedule, according to that, is the Chicago Bears, the Miami Dolphins, the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, what did the Miami Dolphins and Arizona Cardinals do to deserve this? Does if as you know, I said I don't put too much stock into this, but if people do, then you're looking at that and looking at what the Dolphins have done, and they've gotten rid of everyone. Looking at what that Cardinals roster that is just awful, and then decided to draft a running back despite their roster being one of the worst in football. Them two having to play a tough schedule, that could end quite badly for those two. So Arch Manning, I would suggest that you start learning Arizona Cardinals quite soon, because that's probably where a big chance where you're going to end up, and then round that off with the Packers and the Chiefs, which even the Chiefs having a down year still somehow seem to end up with what is viewed as a tough record. But as I said, I don't think you can put too much stock into that kind of, what their record was last year. I mean, yes, I think 8 of the Browns' opponents finished with less than 8 wins last season. Actually, that's a lie. 10 of the Browns' opponents finished with 8 or fewer wins last season. And I think the only opponents that they have on the schedule that made the playoffs last season is the Houston Texans, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Panthers, by technicality, and the Steelers. So, yes, I think to kind of put a bow on all of this and wrap up my kind of thoughts on this strength of schedule stuff is that, as I said at the start, yes, we can put some stock into this. I personally prefer the models that kind of look at win totals and projections more so than just copy and pasting last season's win total. I think they have a better thing to take into it. But I do think you can take something from these kind of strength of schedule stuff. The Browns having what is regarded as the easiest schedule. You look at the opponents. Yes, that does make sense. That does line up. 8 of the previous 8 teams in the AFC with the easiest schedule all didn't all make the playoffs, but all had winning records. The last 3 all had new coaches and made the playoffs. So there's clearly precedent here. There's clearly a correlation. I'm not saying we should just chuck this out of the window, but I am also saying that we should partly chuck this out the window because I just don't think you can put too much stock into this kind of stuff. We all know how the NFL works. We all know how teams can go from being terrible one year to being great the next year. Hopefully that's the case with our Cleveland Browns this year, but that could of course be the case with plenty of the teams that are on their schedule. So I wouldn't put too much stock into it, as I said, but it is something that we can kind of put a pin in and say, well, yeah, it does mean something, and hopefully it results in a good season with obviously playing a somewhat easy schedule. But let's not all sit here in May and say, well, the Browns are going to the Super Bowl because the NFL told us that we have the easiest schedule. I just don't think that's the case. As I said, I will of course do a video reacting to the official schedule release when we get it. Thursday night, 1 a.m. I will not be staying up for that. I will not be seated. I will be lying down in my bed, and I will react to it in the morning. And I'll look at all the videos and all the digs that teams do at each other. I'm sure the Browns are going to get a dig in everyone's video, as we always do. It's all fun and games. But as I said, I will react to that video then. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that we should put a lot of stock into this kind of strength of schedule stuff? Are you like me and you think it's kind of bit of both? Or are you someone that thinks, nope, it absolutely means nothing and we shouldn't even look at it and it doesn't matter at all? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit that subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if that means I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Let me know, guys, if anyone is interested in joining me on my channel this off-season to talk Browns. I'm always looking for guests to come on and talk about the Browns as we get into the kind of the weeds of the off-season. I love talking Browns. I love talking, and I love nothing more than talking Browns with Browns fans. So if you or anyone you know want to come on the channel, talk some Browns, drop a message in the comments. As I said, go look at the links in the description to see where you can get in contact with me on social media, and I encourage everyone to do that. But that will do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much one more time, and most importantly, go Browns.